This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. A couple years ago, I went through one of the toughest health episodes of my life. I found myself in a really dark place, and honestly, it felt like the world was caving in all around me. I didn't know where to turn or what to do. I knew I needed something, but it just seemed like nothing was working. In therapy didn't work for me in the past. But then, with the encouragement of my wife, I decided to give today's sponsor BetterHelp a try, even though I was a little skeptical at first. And let me say, it was so different. I connected with a therapist, and simply talking with her helped me lower my anxiety in ways I didn't expect. Sometimes it's just about having someone outside of your family to listen, and BetterHelp made that so easy. What I love most about BetterHelp is the flexibility. You don't have to commit to months of sessions if that's not what you need. Sometimes a few sessions are all it takes to get some relief, to take the edge off, and start feeling a little better. Plus, they have a wide selection of therapists. You can find someone you really click with, and if you don't, you can switch therapists anytime at no extra cost. If you're like me, someone who gets stuck in their head a lot, BetterHelp might be the answer. And right now, if you visit betterhelp.com/sold-separately or use the link in this video's description, you can get 10% off your first month. So give it a try. Remember, you can't take care of anyone else in your life until you take care of yourself.
Auto sequence start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And now, on with the show.
Hi, my name is Eva Minkoff, and happiness for me is being in awe with life in the moment, really being present to the moment in front of you and recognizing the beauty in it.
Okay. Hello, Eva Minkoff. Thanks so much for taking the time for me. I so appreciate it.
Oh yeah, me too. It's such a pleasure to be on this podcast with you.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. There's so much I want to get into with you. You've been on this mission for a while now to take a deeper look at our healthcare system, many aspects of that. I know we were just talking about how things it all connects, but we've somehow lost this humanity in our patient-doctor relationship. Is that what kind of started this whole journey for you? I know you had a personal experience, right?
Yeah. Of course, like anything, it's multifaceted. And unfortunately, I had many experiences with doctor-patient relationships, both working and not working. But yeah, it was definitely one of the areas that highlighted for me the significance of connection, the impact of connection. But I also saw it. I saw it throughout my life. The Kickstarter for me even exploring this actually wasn't about medicine. And I realized, I have a TED Talk on this subject related to healthcare, but I actually don't mention in the TED Talk why I even started this journey.
So, and it you were how old when this kind of happened, or when you went through your own personal experience? Was it early on? Did you just find different things that you thought were kind of, I don't know, didn't seem right to you? Or was there like a specific thing that you had gone through in your life that made you kind of want to look at it closer? This whole relationship between patient and doctor?
For sure. As I'm starting to share this, though, I realize I have talked about doctor-patient relationships on many different platforms, many different ways, but I never explained where my interest in happiness and human connection originated from. So just for some background, I do have a TED Talk called 5 Minutes to Fix Our Broken Healthcare System. And yes, I'm aware that's a very bold title. And I'll just say that in the talk at one point, I share that I conducted a study in college. And it resulted in me basically learning how to connect with a patient in 5 minutes or less. The reason I conducted that study actually was not about patient-doctor relationships at all. It was just a byproduct that I didn't see coming. The reason I conducted this study, which was honestly, it was just the environment. I had a good relationship with this doctor, and he let me use a spare office in his place. And I said, I'm really curious about exploring what makes people happy. And so I created this study that isn't that novel, and it was exploring people's expectations in life. If they've been met, not met, exceeded, how much those life scenarios even mattered to them, and then if there were any extenuating circumstances. And I was just dead set on exploring happiness, because when I was 12 years old at my birthday party, it was a sleepover, a bunch of girls, very, very typical. We found ourselves playing that game, Never Have I Ever. And I still cannot tell you why I did this to this day, but I said, never have I ever thought about suicide. And all 9 of my other girlfriends put a finger down. For those who don't know this game, that means that they have. They have thought about that. And I can't say anything to their experiences. We're 12-year-old girls. But that shocked me to my core. And I started to be more aware of the fact from that day on that I was born much happier than most people. I thought people were born happy by default, and then there were a select few who were not. And unfortunately, I found that that's not the case. And of course, I'm being very black and white about this. And I am privileged also in many ways. I think the way in which I am most privileged is that I was born a positive person. And so that's why I conducted the study, because I understood this privilege at a very young age, and I wanted to understand why other people didn't seem to feel the way I did. And is there anything I could do about that? And I mean, that definitely relates to everything with doctor-patient relationships, but I realized I've never told anyone that story before.
Wow. That's shocking that 12-year-olds are thinking about that. I mean, to have several, not only just one, but several. I mean, what do you attribute the cause of that? Just the different things that your friends were going through? And did you delve into that, or just kind of let it go at that party and just... It's a heavy subject to talk about with your friends.
It is. And I do not take it lightly. I think there's a number of factors. I am still good friends actually with at least a couple of those girls. And both of them have depression or like depression adjacent conditions. And I think actually a few of the girls did. However, again, we're 12. We're just experiencing puberty and questioning life and all these things. Like it's a very intense time. So, and it's probably for a lot of us, the time where we learn what suicide is. And again, I really don't mean to dismiss this, but it's possible that some of them were like, this sounds terrible. Thought it was kind of cool to be, I'm just going to say it because this is the word that comes out, and it was just our generation, but like the emo type. That doesn't mean I dismiss their feelings. I'm just saying they might not know also what they were feeling, but it was such an intense time. Regardless, that what the message sent to me was that there was some unhappiness that they didn't know how to grapple with. And look, regardless of whether or not that, like the depth of the truth of what they shared, it showed me that it is extremely common to be unhappy. And I mean, I have found that throughout my life, and that doesn't mean that everyone suffers with clinical depression or again, some other related mental illness. Also, I'm going to pause for a second and say something. I actually have mental illness. It just isn't depression. I have an unspecified mood disorder that happens to lean toward hypermanic, where like it's more happy than it is down. But I could speak extensively about my struggles with that. So I just happen to have one that doesn't lead me to have suicidal thoughts. It leads to other concerns and other repercussions in my life.
Yeah, that can that ever be exhausting, being up all the time? Does that ever wear you out? Like you feel like I know you're a positive person, but do you sometimes, does that exclude a lot of energy, I guess, to be that positive all the time?
That's a great question. So first of all, now I've been medicated for over a decade. Very well medicated. I got also very lucky with that. I found one that works perfectly and sort of filtered out the worst symptoms and has left me with Eva as maybe, I would say, a much better version of Eva that is not tainted. And I appreciate that. So it's less so these days. But when I was younger, because I started being medicated, what was it, like 22? It manifested impulsivity more than anything. So it was like, oh, I have this thought, immediately into action, which was mistaken for boldness, honestly, when really it was reactivity. A lot of people didn't understand why I was doing what I was doing. Because I'm actually thinking that the positivity and the unspecified bipolar were not really the same thing. They were related to each other. But as I've shared, like, I'm still a positive person. That's still very baseline for me. But when it's hard to say because I didn't have a therapist at the time, but either manic, hypomanic, something like that. It was definitely exhausting, emotionally, physically. Don't recommend. Don't recommend behaviors.
I mean, I'm sure people around you probably thought, oh, Eva knows, she's got it all figured out, or she's always a positive person, but probably maybe sometimes inside you were screaming out, no, I don't know what to do, but I exude this positivity and just everything's going to be okay. And that can be emotionally tiring when you're trying to be up for everybody, everybody around you or someone that's going through something. When you take on those emotions, I'm sure that can really weigh you down.
Yeah. And thankfully it didn't ruin these relationships ultimately, but it was a really big problem between, quite frankly, me and my best friend, who was one of those girls. She's still my best friend to this day. But she suffers with clinical depression, and I didn't understand what she was going through. And so I did all the wrong things. Like, why can't you just do this? And, like all these, like, I just didn't understand her experience. And therefore I couldn't be supportive and empathetic and compassionate in the way that she needed. Yeah. And that still breaks my heart to this day. Thankfully, she stuck with me. We're great friends. She's actually a therapist now. And like,
oh, wow.
It's worked out beautifully. I appreciate her getting that I didn't get it.
Yeah. Well, sometimes we go through that, to figure it out. We have to go through those challenges. And it sounds like I was speaking to you earlier, we have a lot in common because we both value this sense of empathy and storytelling in communication and understanding one another. It sounds like you really implement that a lot in your coaching and your teaching.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to me, empathy, which is really the root of empathy and compassion as the root of human connection, is, I think, the basis of absolutely everything on this planet. And sometimes it baffles me that we wouldn't see it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, as humans, we are literally wired for connection. There might be a select few, like psychopaths, but I can't speak for those. Sorry. But generally that is naturally just how we are. And we are looking for connection in different ways. Sometimes we express it in different ways, but ultimately to be seen, to be heard, to allowed to be expressed. It goes hand in hand with things like needing to feel safe and have agency and desired. This is who we are, regardless of what we do, where we're from, what our background is. And so that's what I ask myself in pretty much every interaction, whether it be professional or personal. By the way, I'm far from perfect. So I definitely miss this on occasion.
Oh, we all do. Yeah,
for sure. But I'm happy to say that generally speaking, I have an awareness that we're all human empirically. That's what we have in common. So what's a common ground we can find in the experience that we want to have with each other?
So well said. I mean, I think the connection is so important. That's been, gosh, from the time began. We want to be heard. We want to feel like we have a purpose. We want to feel like that people get us, I guess, if you will, or hear us. And I know that we kind of started out in this idea of a doctor-patient relationship and in healthcare overall, but do you find that also plays into any kind of business aspect? If for some of your clients that are seeking your counsel, your coaching, it's all walks of life, right? Not just only in healthcare, but anything that you have going on, any kind of at your job or with your spouse or friends. I think this idea of empathy is so huge and lacking a lot of times in society today. Everybody's so busy.
Oh yeah. It's, like I said, it's really fundamental, and where that plays into my work with clients, but also, I mean, in healthcare and everywhere, is about connection to self first and foremost. And that, I think, has been the biggest development in my work over the last, definitely the last 5 years, but maybe even longer than that, is understanding that in order to have more effective communication and relationships with others, that we need to have one with ourselves first. You know, the very cliche analogies of putting your mask on before someone else is on a plane. Right. You can't love you can't love others before loving yourself. I don't think it has to be that black and white, but I absolutely believe there is truth to it in nuance. For instance, I believe that you cannot love someone to the full capacity that's possible unless you also have love, respect, and trust within yourself. Doesn't mean you can't love other people, but there is always going to be a threshold that is difficult to pass because there's going to be a limit on connection. You can't give yourself fully to someone. You can't even hear someone fully, because I know this is hard for everyone to admit, but we're all selfish and we all have egos. And I don't mean that with judgment. I mean it very neutrally. Like, we are also wired to be that way for safety and a plethora of other reasons. But for that reason, if we're not in touch with our ego, in touch with ourselves, in touch with our needs and desires and so on, they're going to get in the way of how we connect with someone else. It's not that we make them go away. We're always going to have the ego. We're always going to think about ourselves as we should. But if we're not aware of how that's impacting us and therefore impacting others, it's going to hinder our communication. And oh my God, is that true in healthcare?
Oh yeah.
We are so, and again, not making this wrong. This is just how it is in these environments, and the system is maybe there's a petri dish for like breeding egocentricity. It's funny, I don't use the word ego very often, and I find myself using it today. But a patient is coming in, I'm speaking very broadly, a patient is coming in with a worry about themselves. There's fear, there might be anger, there's sadness. So it's definitely self-focused, as it should be, right? Like, we're coming to have a problem. And if that person isn't exactly, the person being the doctor or the other staff member, isn't exactly what we need in that moment to validate us, to see us, to support us, our automatic is going to be whatever our typical automatic is: fight, flight, freeze, fawn. That's a new one. And same with the doctor. The doctor is going to be the exact same way. They have an agenda. They have, I'm just going to say for the record, so many limitations. People really do not realize their limitations. It is extensive. There is very little agency that doctors have. And the expectations on them, the time, the financial pressures, the legal pressures. Did I mention the fatigue? I could go on about what doctors are going through. I will not give them the get out of jail free card and say it's permission for them to be assholes or not empathetic. However, most patients don't know where the doctor's coming from. And so we're in a sensitive and vulnerable position as patients. And then a doctor's coming from honestly a vulnerable position as well. And we're not seeing eye to eye, that we're both honestly on the same playing field coming from different angles. There's such a palpable lack of connection in the majority of these interactions. And I don't understand how we could deny the impact that has on our individual well-being, success of healthcare, and the system as a whole. All right, I'll get off my soapbox.
No, I'm right there with you. I think one thing I wanted to ask you about, because I noticed one thing in your TED Talk you mentioned was really striking, was that, comparing your doctor to someone close to you, like your best friend. What would happen if your doctor knew you better than your best friend? Do you think as patients, I guess it's a fine line how much you share, but should we be sharing more about our life experiences to better enable that doctor to give us an accurate diagnosis, or help us as a patient? Like, how far is too far when we're sharing? Should we get a deeper relationship there?
Oh, that is a fantastic question, Jason. And while I can absolutely give guidance on that, of course, every situation's a little bit different. I'll go into actually how to generally understand the difference in the relationship, which is think about it like you were comparing it to a best friend, as I do in the talk. I also compare it to dating in the talk.
Yeah.
So that just goes to show we're talking about two different humans. So how would you be in a human interaction with anyone? You read them. You read like, what is the comfortability level, and like how do you communicate? So that's first and foremost, is get a vibe for the person in front of you. So all that to say, there's no like specific formula for how much to share and how much not to share. But on that note, I would say some relative guidance is what is required for there to be a connection as two people in the room at baseline. So it could be as simple as like the doctor saying, I'm so sorry that I'm late, because a lot of them are late. And, we're really backed up today. I promise I've been trying my hardest, like showing that like I'm human, I'm trying, I'm here for you. No excuse to be late. I just want you to know where I'm coming from. Getting them to see I'm a person at a job, really trying to do my best to be here. And then acknowledging the other person as human by apologizing. That's like, to me, that's baseline personally. And well, there's so many things that are coming to mind. That's why I'm hesitating. I have so much to say on this topic.
But we sometimes we are like, I guess as a patient, you almost fear, like you see the doctor as, I don't want to say over you, but there's a sense that, okay, I'm here, I'm the vulnerable one, they're helping me out. But I guess what you're saying, if I hear you correctly, is that we need to have that baseline. We need to establish that we're both empathetic to the other. If you're having a bad day as a doctor, we need to be empathetic of that and not jump down their throat for being late or how long you've been sitting there, and vice versa. I think just having that relationship and that rapport is crucial, I would say.
I'll actually give a recent example of exactly this kind of interaction. So I was have a routine gynecology appointment, and I love my gynecologist. Like we have a really good rapport. And I waited for 2 hours the last time I was there. I was pissed. I was late for picking up my daughter, like all these things. I was not having it. And she walks in, and I advocate for myself. Like I mentioned to the staff a couple times, like I need to do this, yada, yada. I'm one of those people. And she walks in, and I've got a face on, right? Like I don't look particularly pleased. I'm an expressive person. She immediately comes in and not only apologizes for being late, she shares with me that the other doctor just didn't show that day. And they had a full day of patients, which is already too many, right? And she's been doing her best to keep up. And I can't remember the details, but she was sharing some like what she was going through. And immediately my armor drops to the floor.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I think the first thing I said to her was, yeah, I've been here for 2 hours, a little bit snarky. And this is me coming from someone who like, this is my thing, right? Like doctor-patient relationships. And I am not happy. But she shares with me what's going on. And I immediately decide, okay, I want to hear this woman out as a person. She's obviously having a really tough day. And so I say that to her. I say, like, it sounds like this is a really tough day for you. And it's like those last 2 hours didn't matter. And we were in relationship, and it was a really lovely appointment. I did need to rush it a little bit.
Yeah, for
but, even in, I don't know, maybe we spent 5 minutes together. It wasn't even very long, but I felt oddly fulfilled afterwards, even though I was fuming probably at one point.
Yeah, but you got so much out of that from your relationship. Probably you in that moment, you probably got closer because of that's, what they say, friction makes things better. I mean, in the long run. So in a relationship, it's no matter what kind of relationship it is, it's not always going to be roses. So that's
Very
probably,
true.
yeah, it's a good thing. I mean, in a way, it's not good when you're sitting there and you've got to get your daughter, but after the fact, I'm sure it brought you two closer together.
Yeah, it did. And we had some wonderful conversations, and she's asking me about my life. She's asking me about my daughter who, she was there for the whole pregnancy. And there's this wonderful ability to connect when we see each other as human first. And to be clear, even though we did have a relationship prior to this, I could see how that would have unfolded even if I had never met her before. Because she opened up to me about where she was coming from while also being empathetic and recognizing what I had experienced because she was late.
Yeah, exactly. I think that could have gone a different direction if she had walked in and didn't have any empathy toward you for having to be there for so long, or, didn't care to mention that she had a long day or the doctor didn't show up. So it's all about how you kind of, I don't know, like you said, take down your armor and look at a situation with a little bit of clarity and put yourself in the other person's shoes. And I guess we should say too, that you don't ever say it's either the patient's fault or doctor's fault. It's basically the overall healthcare system is broken, right? I mean, it's just how the strains that are put on everybody involved.
Yeah. And what I'm recognizing is that it's pretty difficult to point fingers really anywhere in particular. Sure, there are some maybe bad players on the higher ups. They exist out there, but it's humans that make up this system. And I truly believe that humans are always trying their best with the tools and know-how that they have at that given time. I really, really believe that. As someone who, had some pretty nasty episodes growing up, I have a lot of things I've held shame around because of that. I knew that my intentions were good. I love people so deeply, and I hurt a lot of people. And that's really hard for me to acknowledge. But I recognize like younger Eva was doing the best she could with the tools that she had at the time. Yeah.
And life is all about learning and retrospect, being able to come to terms with certain things that we've done in our past, but not harp on them, but learn from that and move on. And it's all about where we end up and not, necessarily where we've come from, in the beginning. It's about how we treat people now. And sometimes I tell you, those events in your younger life, you can learn huge lessons in that. I mean, you have, I think a lot of people have, and just based on how you treat people now or, moving forward, how you are in society, especially in situations like this with healthcare. I mean, it is so straining on a physician, and there's so many things that they have to go through: time restraints, insurance, everything that they have to fight, and then time with patients that they would probably want to spend more time with, but they just can't because schedules are booked crazy in numbers. So I guess how do we fix that problem? Is it more of the cases that you just described with you and your doctor and having that kindness and empathy, and we just start a snowball rolling? Or do you see bigger changes that need to happen overall? Or is it about us as humans?
Oh,
it's a lot.
Yeah.
Lots of impact.
Well, I'll share this. I think leadership does have a huge role in this. But definitely, it's definitely not exclusive to leadership. As I like to say, we have the ability to change the system because we make up that system. We as people, definitely patients and doctors, but everyone, every type of staff that exists, but the C-suite as well. And I've had the pleasure, the honor, and the possibility of working with the C-suite in healthcare. And I say that because I finally got to see under the hood of where these people are coming from and what their desires are. Now, certain people will come to me as clients and not others. So there might be something there. I will say that all of the clients that have come to me are big-hearted humans. That's something they all have in common. So they probably picked me for a reason. However, I'm also seeing the constraints they're under. You would be shocked at the lack of agency that like CEOs feel a lot of the time. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
It's crazy. They're literally chief executive officers and they feel like they're between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the people that come to you are probably the people that want to make a change. Wouldn't you say? People that want to, and they care about people and they want it to get better.
They do. They really, really do. I had someone message me on LinkedIn the other day, someone in the C-suite who, I asked them like one question. And they flat out told me that they can't pay their doctors enough. They know they're underpaying their staff in general. I'm forgetting what the other hurdle was now, but the point is they didn't know what else to do. They're like, I'm just going to have to pay them less. Like they had absolutely no choice in the matter.
Wow. And that's where we are, right? You've got lower pay going on and you've got frustration in that and longer hours and more patients. It's a cycle and then it affects us as patients and not necessarily the doctor's fault. It's just, they're kind of a slave to that system as well.
Very much so. Very much a slave. But what's really horrible is it seems like almost everyone is. And that's why we can, and I said it in my TED Talk title, and we say it now all the time, unabashedly, the system is broken. It's broken not because one person broke it, one type of role broke it. It's because it is a mess everywhere.
Yeah.
There is disconnection everywhere. There are strategies that don't make sense. And what's weird is it's an industry, and I guess I'm speaking for America, but I found that this shows up in a lot of other countries as well. I just can't speak for them extensively, but we are simultaneously stuck and moving too fast at the same time. It's a really weird place to be in. And when I personally have come across instances like that, where it's almost like chaos, like you don't know what to do, always go back to the fundamentals of human connection, because that's what we have a say in. We have a say in how we show up for ourselves, and we have a say in how we show up for others.
And you always, they say you get more bees with honey. I think it's true. I mean, if you go into a situation, no matter how frustrated you are, if parking is bad or whatever the case may be, or you've waited for 2 hours like you did, I think it's all on how you, I guess, stop, breathe. And then when your doctor walks in, instead of just firing squad, just kind of, if you can, put yourself in their position and what they're going through. There's this whole, like I said, I think there's a disconnect there with doctors. We think, okay, you're scared if you go in a lot of times, or you're nervous at least, because happiness, I think, is tied so much to our overall health and our well-being. And I think when you come into a doctor's office, you're looking for answers, but they may or may not have all the answers. And I think that's one thing we need to take into consideration also. You may have to go through, I went through a horrible health experience myself a few years ago where they just couldn't find out what was going on. And I had all these scans and all these tests done. And finally I have a great doctor now and, discovered one little thing, and that's what it was. It was a problem. And so for those doctors who take empathy on themselves to patients, I think those are, man, if you can find a good doctor like that, hang on to them, because they're the ones who shine for sure in this system, even though they have all those pressures. If they can find that moment of empathy and communication and caring, that's worth the gold to me, I think.
I also think that as patients, we can, sounds odd, but like train our doctors to do that. It takes a little bit more effort on our part, but if we show up in connection and show our doctors empathy and understanding, and maybe even ask them how their day is going, first of all, they'll probably be taken aback.
Yeah, for sure.
And it may get them to think differently about the interaction with you as well as the others that day. It takes two to tango to an extent, but someone's got to initiate that dance.
Yeah, so true. And if you take a moment and say that, you're right, they're probably shocked. And I wonder why you're asking that. And I've been to doctors too. I've tried to do that. And sometimes they are so stressed out themselves about getting to the next patient. They don't want to take up that time talking about themselves. And I get that, but just a quick little, how are you doing? How's your day going? I don't think that's too much of a conversation to have.
Oh, yeah.
But I think they, in the long run, I'm sure they appreciate that. We need to do that more. Like you said, we can drive that boat a lot when we go in to see our doctors. We can set that tone when they come in and make it a more relaxed experience. I mean, you did that with your story with your doctor. I mean, you kind of brought that level down. You were stressed, but people pick up on each other's energy. So
yeah, exactly. And human connection takes seconds.
Yeah.
It is not something that needs to take long. You asked earlier, like, what's too much? It's really hard to pinpoint.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time, actually, if doctors just let patients speak, and I'm not just saying this to say, like, I've talked to many doctors about this. I think there's actually quite a bit of research on it. If you just let a patient speak, they'll often tell you what's wrong.
Yeah.
They give you all the information you need. As I like to say, if as a patient you think it's important, share it. The reason being, it may not necessarily be directly medically relevant, but it is relevant to you as the person. If you're undergoing a lot of stressors or like things going on in your environment, that is important for your doctor to know. And if a doctor is actually actively listening, they will, from whatever it is that you're sharing, have a better idea of what to ask that will give them the answers that they need. I have talked to many, many doctors about this, and they say it is, if they go with this approach, it is once in a blue moon that a patient overshares and is really not helpful. Like, it's super, super rare.
Well, that's good to hear. Yeah. I think that's so true. I think also too, I always say, don't let them get away if you haven't asked all your questions. Make sure because that can it can lower your anxiety when you leave. The worst thing is to leave a doctor's office and you feel like, I don't know any more than I did before I came in. So
cannot say how many times that happened to me.
Yeah. I mean,
I could share so many different things on this topic. So I just want to put it out there. If anyone has any questions or thoughts, that they can reach out to me, because I could talk about this for probably 24 hours straight on different scenarios and ways to connect in a doctor's office. I realize this is something I usually share, and I didn't. I know we're more than halfway through this, but it's never too late in case anyone cares. Yeah. I've been a chronic patient for over 20 years, and it took me, I wasn't diagnosed properly actually until I was 30, which was after the TED Talk. And I'm also married to a physician. I felt this way about doctor-patient relationships way before I met him. But now I know, I guess, firsthand-ish what they're going through. My husband is one of the most compassionate, loving people I've ever met. And I met him 6 weeks into his intern year in residency. So fresh doctor.
Wow.
And I watched the system start to poison him. And I saw him wearing a different hat at home than he did at the office. And I pointed it out. And now I'm proud to say he took that on, and he shows up as a very different doctor, much more how he is at home now with his patients. But it just goes to show, like, he was basically brainwashed. I'm using pretty extreme terminology here, but to be a certain way to survive in that system. And that's heartbreaking.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, my wife is a nurse practitioner, so I hear some of the same stories. You know, it's patient load. It's wishing you could fix everything, but you can't. And it's a lot of anxiety. I mean, we've had many conversations about that about the system. And she's been in it for 30 years. So it's just, and it's never, I guess, gotten to a point like it is now. She's seen it ramp up. I don't know if your husband has noticed it progressively getting worse, but the system is just, like you said, there's no other way to put it. It's just broken.
Yeah. And we're also in a pivotal moment in history in healthcare, but beyond healthcare as well. I'll just speak to healthcare with the integration of AI.
Yeah.
I mean, we're really on the precipice of we're in a new era, and it's not going to slow down. It's going to be constant change, probably the rest of our lives, with the emergence of technology. And I bring that up because while, of course, I've always thought human connection is the key to everything, and, it should never be overlooked and is never fluffy. Now it's a new level of significance where I'm really personally happy that AI is going to be implemented in healthcare, because I'm hoping that for a lot of it, it makes it much more effective and efficient, especially with time and doctor's appointments, like AI scribes, so that doctors can look at the patient and not be writing or typing, and giving more space for that connection, because all the details are being taken down, and doctors can do what they do best. Yes, they are absolutely scientists first and foremost. I think a lot of people forget that, by the way, that doctors are scientists. Just think of all the other like your perception of other scientists. These people are still scientists. Yeah. And they can be the scientists as well as the human in the room, because someone as an AI is already taking care of all the other elements. We're in early days. Think of it like when the iPhone was first released, and it wasn't great. Right. There's going to be a lot of improvements over time. So I don't think it's making care that much more efficient yet. My husband, for instance, is using an AI scribe for the first time, and he has to adapt to it versus it adapting to him. So it's not really saving time yet. But eventually, I have full confidence that it will aid him in his care. All that to say that us learning to connect with each other on another level is going to be what really separates us from technology, and also how we're going to be. I haven't really said this out loud before, so I'm thinking about it, but it's going to be the glue required in this new era, when it's just constant change and like shift in how we go about our lives.
Yeah.
I fully believe pretty much everyone's profession at some point is going to either be impacted or fundamentally change.
Yeah.
I just want to say for the record, a lot of people think their jobs are going to be replaced by AI. And I urge you to look at it through a different lens, which is your job or your profession is going to change its focus. But your value, and whatever your profession is, like the really intrinsic value that you provide, will always be there and always be valuable, but it might be expressed differently.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say too, people need to learn or start to look into that, to AI, because I think like you said, they're going to be a need for humans to operate the AI or to maintain it. It's the physicality of in a warehouse, a box being moved, that may be, but somebody's going to have to manage the logistics of all of these robots going back and forth in a warehouse, or, loading a truck, or, that's the sad reality, I guess, that it is going to happen that way. But it also, I think, is going to be good in long run. I think the fear that we have right now, the jobs are going to be replaced, is, like you said, look at it through a different lens, new perspective. I think that it will change, yes, but your job just might change a little bit in how you are working with that AI. So I think, yeah. And that's another thing with happiness. I think we can get down rabbit holes with all these things. And even with healthcare, fear, or you look online and you look up your own symptoms and try to figure it out. And that causes anxiety and fear. And when you have these great relationships with your doctor, you can feel more at ease, I guess, to jump on a portal and send them an email or call or schedule an appointment. It's all about those. Everything is, I'm convinced everything comes down to human connection. I just feel like that's the answer overall to a lot of our problems.
Well, you and I definitely see eye to eye in that. And I appreciate it greatly.
Oh, I appreciate you. And you are amazing. All the things that you've done and all the things that you're doing. Just really impressed with you. And I just thank you so much. Where can people find you if they want to look into your coaching or teaching? What's the best way to connect with you online?
I mean, I'm definitely on LinkedIn as Eva Minkoff, but I also have a website, boldbeing.co. Bold Being is the name of my company. And I honestly recommend, one of the best ways to stay in touch with me, both personally and just long-term with what I'm up to, is my Bold Being Weekly. I think you can just find it like newsletter tab, or maybe it's on my homepage. But the reason I mentioned that is, so I'll also just share that the reason I called my company Bold Being and not Being Bold, first of all, is that I believe that boldness is not it's not a trait. It's a skill. I think you can be born naturally bold, or with that skill. But to me, boldness translates to living at choice.
Interesting.
Fully choosing your life, being intentional. And again, I could go down a rabbit hole with that. But again, I mentioned the newsletter because Bold Being Weekly is where I share a lot of raw stories about boldness. Not always working out, but never regrets.
That's life,
about
though,
it.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. I share some fun old pictures of myself that I've, taken from Facebook over the years, as well as lessons in boldness. Sometimes I also share stories from my clients, so it might be, 12-year-old Eva, and then the CEO of a hospital, and how essentially the lessons were the same.
Yeah, I like that. That's great. It always helps to feel like somebody's been through that before, and you're not alone. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I would definitely check that out for sure. And your website is very well done and chock full of information and helpful tidbits. So I encourage anybody to check out your website and what you're doing, because I think we need more people like you in the world who's trying to bring people together and find connection and find that happiness through connection, no matter what relationship it is, personal or professional.
We're all just humans at the end of the day.
That's it, my friend. Well, thank you so much. Please come back too, and let's continue the conversation. Thank
you, Jason. And thanks for creating a platform where people get to share their stories of their lessons, their mistakes, their learnings, and a space where people feel comfortable to just be themselves.
Oh, that means so much to me. I'm glad that comes out, because that's what we're trying to do. And we're trying to I learned so much from it, and I feel like if I am, then the audience is too. So thank you.
Happiness Sold Separately is created and hosted by Jason Hensley and is produced by Makash Films. Narration by Lauren Gobis. If you or someone you know is in crisis and needs immediate help, call the National Mental Health Hotline at 866-903-3787. We would be honored if you would rate, share, and subscribe.
Aye, that's a good one.